Welcome back to the Ancestral Findings podcast. Picture yourself in a dim attic, beams of sunlight falling over a weathered trunk filled with brittle letters, sepia-toned photographs, and the faint scent of old paper. Each scrap seems to whisper stories of the people who came before you, laughter around a farmhouse table, the bustle of a family business, or the sight of a hopeful passenger boarding a steamship. It's natural to feel an instant rush of excitement, as if you've just discovered a hidden gateway to your family's past. Genealogy often begins this way, a spark of curiosity and a collection of aged items or whispered tales that make you want to know more. Yet, amid the thrill, it's all too easy to accept every rumor or scribbled date at face value. This is where genealogy discernment enters the picture. Think of it as a guiding principle that blends curiosity with thorough fact-checking, ensuring that each precious detail you uncover can stand on its own. When you practice discernment, you protect your research from errors and give future generations a clearer picture of who their ancestors truly were. In the sections that follow, we'll explore how to approach your family history with enthusiasm and caution, sharing personal anecdotes, strategies for verifying information, and a few insights on organizing your discoveries. Let's set off on a quest that is both exhilarating and grounded in accuracy. Almost every family researcher can recall the moment they were first drawn into the past. For me, it happened in my grandmother's living room. She had an old album brimming with pictures of serious-looking folks in stiff collars. Some pages had notes like Cousin Minnie, 1924, or Jake and Farm Animals. At the time, I took each caption for granted. Yet, soon enough, I realized how easily a casual scribble could be misapplied or mislabeled. That initial period can feel like you're unearthing treasure after treasure. Long-lost birth certificates, postcards from overseas, or the dusty wedding photo that nobody has glanced at in decades. It's perfectly normal to want to gather everything as fast as possible. However, if we rush, we might piece together information that leads us astray. By slowing down and questioning each find just a bit, asking, could this date be right? Do I see any other source backing it up? We allow curiosity to meet caution. It's a satisfying mix that eventually reveals a more authentic family history. Genealogy tells us not just about names and dates, but also about the journeys, challenges, and triumphs that shaped each generation. Through it, we come to understand aspects of our own identity. Still, inaccuracies have a sneaky way of multiplying when we accept them without question. Suppose you stumble on a rumored link to a famous historical figure. If you add this to your family tree without verifying, it might prompt hours of wrong turns and confusion down the road, not to mention misleading others who look to you for research. On the flip side, discernment allows us to uncover remarkable truths that may even surpass the legends. You may think your ancestor was a minor soldier in a war, only to find records indicating a more complex role. Or perhaps you've heard tales of a wealthy relative, but upon checking local land deeds, you learned the reality was more modest, though no less interesting. Caution is a form of respect. It honors the real experiences of those who came before us, rather than handing down a chain of unverified anecdotes. One of the cornerstones of genealogical research is comparing different documents to confirm basic facts. Imagine you locate a census entry from 1910 suggesting that your great-grandfather was 35 and living in Illinois. Before accepting that as the final word, check birth certificates, marriage licenses, or even a city directory from the same region. If each document aligns closely, your confidence in that age and location grows. This habit of cross-checking can save you from countless headaches. Census enumerators sometimes misheard names or ages, and individuals themselves occasionally fudged birthdays for personal reasons. Having multiple records that point to the same conclusion is a strong indication you're on the right track. Contradictions will surface at some point. Perhaps an obituary claims your ancestor was born in Germany, while a passenger manifest says Belgium. Or maybe local records show that someone was a blacksmith, even though family lore has always insisted they were a teacher. Instead of frustration, treat these puzzle pieces as prompts to look deeper. Could borders have changed? Might the individual have switched professions? Did a relative misremember or embellish a story? I once discovered what seemed like an impossible situation. The same man listed in two censuses, only 1 year apart, in two states that were hundreds of miles apart. After poking around in travel and employment records, I realized he had moved to help a family member and was recorded at both addresses around the same time. Contradictions often spark new lines of research that bring you closer to the real story. It's easy to gather a mountain of certificates, letters, and newspaper clippings. Keeping track of where each fact originates is crucial. One approach is to note a simple citation for each record, such as 1910, U.S. Federal Census, Cook County, District 34, Sheet 6, or Marriage License, John Smith and Mary Brown, 1902, Lake County Courthouse. Later, if you or a relative wonders how you arrived at a certain birth date, you can return to the original record without redoing your entire search. Most families pass down grand tales. Think of an ancestor who supposedly struck gold or forged an unusual friendship with a famous figure. These accounts might inspire you to look more closely at certain branches of your tree, and that's part of the fun. Yet stories have a way of shifting as they're repeated. A small glimmer of truth can inflate into a full-blown legend with each generation. During my teenage years, I heard that my great-uncle was once a high-ranking naval officer. Intrigued, I ordered his military records and discovered he served as a chief petty officer, not a captain as the rumor claimed. But in the process of confirming this, I uncovered his letters describing life at sea during World War II. Those letters turned out to be far more compelling than any inflated rank. So, while legends can lead you astray, they can also point you toward unexpected treasures. Sitting with older relatives, listening to them remember the past can be one of the most meaningful parts of genealogical work. Their voices carry details you might never find in official documents, the texture of their daily routines, the quirks of family members, or the local events they attended. The caution here is that memory is imperfect. People combine events or place them in the wrong era. Approach these conversations with empathy. Ask open-ended questions. What was it like growing up in that neighborhood? Do you recall the exact year or season? If the person mentions a wedding or a significant event, inquire whether there's a program, photo, or letter that supports it. These gentle attempts to pinpoint details can strengthen an otherwise hazy recollection. If you have permission, recording interviews can capture not just facts, but the cadence of someone's speech. These audio or video files become heirlooms in their own right, preserving a relative's voice for posterity. It can also help you revisit the conversation if a later document challenges someone's memory. You can replay the interview to see if you might have misheard a particular date or if the speaker might have been blending two events. Online genealogy platforms have revolutionized research. Within minutes, you can call up census data, birth and death records, marriage listings, and much more, some dating back hundreds of years. These expansive collections have made it simpler than ever to explore family roots from your own home. At the same time, you have to be vigilant about user-submitted information. Plenty of public family trees feature errors that get copied and multiplied. Use these shared trees as hints, but always back them up with official documents. If you see that someone has assigned your ancestor a particular birthplace, check local birth registers, baptismal records, or newspaper announcements to verify. The digital era makes it possible to save a large volume of documents and photographs. Still, a flood of PDFs and image files can become an unmanageable mess if you're not systematic. One strategy is to create folders labeled by surname and location, then subdivide by record type, census, birth records, etc. Rename files with clear identifiers like smithjohn _ birth certificate _ 1890. This labeling system ensures you can quickly find what you need. Genealogy forums, social media groups, and specialized message boards can offer assistance if you reach a sticking point. Perhaps you're trying to decipher old handwriting, or you've hit a brick wall in tracking down a marriage certificate. Post a question, and you might find a helpful stranger who has local knowledge or a knack for decoding historical scripts. It's heartening to see how often genealogists support one another, sharing insights or alerting others to hidden archives. Even with countless records now digitized, certain gems remain tucked away in physical collections. Libraries, county courthouses, and historical societies often hold unique records, ledgers, diaries, or property deeds that can't be found elsewhere. You'll likely need to schedule a visit or make a request by mail, but the payoff can be enormous. I recall traveling to a small-town courthouse to look up a land transfer from the early 1900s. It took some patience to leaf through dusty volumes, but I found not only the deed, but also court documents detailing a dispute that gave me fresh insight into my ancestors' personality and circumstances. That day spent with ancient tomes in a quiet reading room proved more thrilling than anything I could have accessed online. Staff members and volunteers at local repositories are often passionate about local history. They might point you to obscure maps or a community record that references your family. These personal tips can be especially helpful if your ancestors lived in an area that had a major event, like a flood, a gold rush, or an influx of immigrants, that shaped settlement patterns. Once you begin collecting materials from multiple places, it's vital to adopt a clear structure. Some researchers prefer a big binder with tabs for each family branch. Others use specialized genealogy software. Still others rely on spreadsheets that reference digital files. Whichever method suits you, be sure to track where each fact came from. If you do end up revising a birth date or location, you can quickly return to the original source to figure out what led to the mix-up. Genealogy is an ongoing process. You might be certain of an ancestor's year of birth until you discover an official record that contradicts your assumption. Instead of treating these moments as setbacks, see them as expansions of your knowledge. Each correction refines your understanding, enriching the grand tapestry of stories in your background. Over time, you'll gain a balanced and documented view of how your family's path unfolded. Researching ancestral lines can bring up a swirl of feelings. You might beam with pride upon learning that your forebears survived hardships on the frontier, or you might feel sadness when you find evidence of heartbreak, conflict, or tragedy. It's entirely possible to experience both admiration and sorrow for individuals you never met, simply because their lives are connected to yours. Many families hold on to old tales that present certain individuals as heroes or romanticize certain chapters of history. Discernment encourages us to accept that reality can be messy. Sometimes it reveals that a revered figure was less heroic than the legend claims. Other times it uncovers quiet courage or surprising achievements in people long overshadowed by bigger personalities. Embracing the whole truth often leads to deeper respect for what your ancestors lived through. Whether you create a printed booklet, maintain an online repository, or email your findings to close relatives, you're shaping how your family views its past. Offering clarity, like properly sourced dates and places, helps your relatives appreciate that you took the time to confirm details. It also protects them from repeating inaccuracies. You might even inspire someone else to continue where you leave off, exploring lines that you haven't yet traced. A well-researched family history can capture the attention of younger generations, providing them with a sense of belonging and curiosity about the past. Children who learn that they descend from a line of farmers might develop a new appreciation for agriculture. Teens who see old photos of relatives in uniforms might want to learn more about the global conflicts that shaped their ancestors' lives. By rooting your research in verifiable facts, you ensure these stories remain powerful and instructive. Genealogy discernment is all about balancing excitement with methodical fact-checking. It means gathering every dusty photograph or whispered anecdote, but also questioning each one, looking for overlapping records, interviewing relatives to fill in gaps, and acknowledging contradictions when they arise. The essence of this approach is respect. Respect for the complexities of our predecessors' lives, and respect for the truth that emerges when we verify details carefully. By taking the time to confirm names, dates, and places, you deepen your connection to the people who paved the way for you. Their joys, struggles, and hopes become clearer, and in turn, you gain insights into your own life. It may require patience to trace certain branches or settle conflicting accounts, but each piece of evidence that stands up to scrutiny strengthens the story you'll share with others. Ultimately, genealogy is a journey of discovery, threaded with reflections about identity and heritage. Practicing discernment ensures that your findings aren't merely lists of ancestors, but a genuine record of their experiences. The more you explore, the more you'll appreciate the grit and spirit that resides in your family tree. And one day, when future generations look back on your careful work, they'll thank you for shedding a bright, honest light on the paths that led to who they are today. Thanks for spending time with me on the Ancestral Findings podcast. I always enjoy sharing these stories, tips, and discoveries with you. If you haven't already, head over to ancestralfindings.com, where you can download a free genealogy ebook, request a free lookup, and of course enter to win the next book giveaway. It's been an incredible journey together since 1995, and your support through these past 29 years means more to me than words can express. I'm so grateful for this wonderful community of genealogy enthusiasts who continue to inspire me every day. Keep up the great work on your family history research, and may your next find be as exciting as your first. Thank you again for being part of this journey, and as always, happy searching.